Hello?
Dr. Georgia?
Yes.
I had to call you today because I've read an article based on comments by General John Kelly, who
No.
was the chief of staff during Trump's first administration.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, General Kelly said that Trump is a dangerous person. He said that there are times in history where people must put their country over their party, and now is one of those times. 13 other high-ranking officials in the former President Trump's staff backed General Kelly's warning. He added that Trump scorned the United States Constitution and favored weaponizing the United States military to be used against his domestic foes. Trump has publicly said that Democrats are the enemy within the United States. So it sounds to me like he plans to round up as many Democrats as he can if he wins the election and put them in prison or worse. If I vote for Trump, am I voting for a fascist who will demolish democracy? Am I voting for someone so vengeful he will order the military to punish citizens whose only issue is exercising their right of free speech?
Well, Jerry, first of all, I think most people don't have a clear picture of what a fascist is. So let me explain that a little bit, and then you can decide whether you think that it's safe for you to vote for Trump or not. First of all, fascism is government controlled by a few wealthy citizens and generally a dictator who controls the nation's social, political, religious, economic, and military powers. Democracy is the opposite of fascism. Democracy is controlled by all the people who then funnel in their preferences to the few people that they've elected to represent them. Basically, in a fascist government like Hitler's Germany and Putin's Russia, the dictator and his few chosen inner circle have all the power of at all. Everybody else is excluded, just those few. Anyone that's not a part of that inner circle has to do whatever the dictator and that inner circle decides that they want them to do. They have complete control over the nation's assets, wealth, and laws that are given to the masses to follow. So, if Trump desires to be a dictator, he will have complete power over all citizens, and they will have little power over their own lives.
My goodness, that sounds terrible. And as I understand it also, Trump has high praise for Russians, Putin. And according to others, he thinks Hitler was a good example of a leader. So if these are his favored leaders, I think we're in deep trouble if he gets elected.
Well, let's first look at what a person that wants to be a dictator goes about in dismantling democracy in the nation. First of all, they create a divide in the country with one group being opposing another group. They will oftentimes cause hatred and divide between different political groups, different ethnic groups, different racial groups, and people will not be seen as unified the way that you see in a democracy. So definitely, if you think about what Trump has done in this country, he has divided Democrats and Republicans, no question about that, but he's also divided Americans from any immigrants. And then he's caused a lot of hatred toward different groups, toward Muslims, towards Mexicans, Asians, Middle Easterners. The latest is Haitians. And then he's said things that have caused a lot of hurt and anger with blacks. Like when he said, when the looting begins, the shooting begins. That was a direct threat that he had with blacks in America. As far as I know, America has never been this divided since the Civil War. And, you know, as evidenced by Trump's slogan, "Make America Great Again," he presents himself as a super patriot who's looking out for the rights and the needs of American citizens. But really, the opposite is the truth. The only ones that will prosper under a dictatorship again is the few people that are around the dictator himself. So he's going to pretend to be super patriotic and look out for people, but that's not going to happen. Another thing they do, besides dividing the nation, is that they attack the idea that the U.S. should be involved in international happenings. For example, Trump has attacked the idea that the U.S. should be involved with Ukraine. Why in the world are we spending so much money on Ukraine? And a lot of people are buying that. Well, we have needs in America, so why should we be involved with any international politics or things that are going on in an international level? The fact of the matter is that the world is so united in our security and safety that if we're not involved in international politics, that very soon we're going to be overwhelmed with problems coming to us. Let me use the example of World War II. So you have the Japanese, you have the Germans and the Italians with the Axis powers. And Hitler was making great strides conquering not only the countries around him, but then progressing into Europe and France and Italy, and then he attacked Russia. And so he was conquering as many as he could. If America had not been attacked by Japan, and if they had not intervened in that war, then just think what our lives would be like now. When they had conquered the English and the other allies that we were able to have, then we would have nobody to fight with us, and we wouldn't have won. So you think about that. Unless if the security and safety of other nations are threatened by, say, Russia threatening Ukraine, then what's to say that Putin is going to start with Ukraine and not stop until he's conquered everything he can?
So what I'm hearing then is, if we hadn't had allies and worked with them to create a world peace, we wouldn't have had 70 years of prosperity and peace in the United States.
That's right. Can you imagine what the world would look like if Hitler's plan to conquer the world had actually unfolded, and he was making great strides in that way? So,
Dr. Georgie, how did they do that?
Well, they are going to influence a few people to join with them. They have a lot of hate speech in their rallies, and people that are dissatisfied for any reason are going to glom onto them. Yeah, here's somebody that's also dissatisfied, and let's join with him because he will understand us. It almost becomes like a cult that when somebody is looking for something and someone says, "Oh, come with us, we'll accept you, we will care for you," and all that, they will go, not realizing that by joining with that type of person, that is very, very controlling, they're going to end up losing everything. They're going to lose their identity, their freedom, everything.
Dr. Georgia, I've also heard that a lot of people say they're going to vote for Trump with disregarding what you've said because they think he'll make a better economy. Is there any truth to that?
Well, I mean, let's look at it this way. Donald Trump inherited, from what I've read, somewhere around $413 million from his father. Yet, something happened to all those riches that he had to claim bankruptcy with his businesses at least 4 times since then. So that doesn't sound like somebody that is good with their own personal economics and taking care of their own money, even though he had a tremendous wealth to begin with. And then you look at what happened when Donald Trump was president. He was, along with 2 other presidents, had the highest increase in the national deficits. So borrowing money was what he did a lot of, instead of making money and increasing our imports and our exports. He created a lot of debt for the United States. The only 2 presidents that were in line with increasing the national debts was also 2 Republicans, Abraham Lincoln and George W. Bush. But they increased the deficit in the United States because they were in war times. And that
is different.
Yeah, that's different because Trump was not in wartime. So, I don't think he has any claims to say that he is an expert on business management because he's had to, claim bankruptcy so many times and he's lost so much money. And even if you look at the 34 felony convictions that he has right now, he's total number fines for those crimes was $500 million, not $500,000, $500 million, 400 and some thousand million. So
it's certainly true that Trump's got some issues, and he does show signs of would-be dictator. I've also noticed he has a total disregard for women. To understand that New York courts convicted him of sexual assault of women, as well as 33 felony convictions in the city itself. Well, how about him telling his own nephew, to just let the nephew's son, handicapped child die so his nephew could move to Florida? Well, as far as disregard for handicapped people, Hitler went further than disregard. He gathered up children and adults who were considered mentally or physically handicapped and sent them to the death camps.
Yeah.
Do you think Trump is in position to do that?
Well, I mean, for a person like Trump, who is the uncle of, his nephew, Fred Trump III. Fred Trump III had this wonderful boy who happened to be handicapped, but he loved him. He was his son. And for Trump to say, hey, just leave him and let him die. And then you can just move to Florida and forget about it. And Fred Trump III reported that he was in the Oval Office when Trump was president, and a group of advocates for handicapped people, including doctors and such, visited Trump and made an appeal for special programs for the handicapped. And Trump listened and nodded his head. And so Fred Trump III was like, well, my uncle is paying some attention to the needs of the handicapped. But after the doctors and the advocates left the room, he turned to Fred Trump III and said, you know, those people, the handicapped, should just die. They cost the country too much. So,
That's terrible.
Yes.
That's really terrible.
Yeah, and that's basically what you said, that, you know, Hitler had that same mindset. When he gained power, he gathered together children and adults who were judged to be mentally or physically handicapped. And they were some of the first that were exterminated, and then the gas chambers started.
So what safeguards will any of us have with Trump in charge of the Republican Party? He claims he's also directing the United States Supreme Court. If he becomes president again, he has already directed the making or crafting of the Project 2025, giving him expanded powers over all executive branch agencies, including the Justice Department, which previously investigated charges against him doing unconstitutional actions. But of course, he wants to do away with the Constitution altogether. And how about the U.S. Supreme Court giving the president protection against prosecution if he's taking actions in his official capacity as president? Essentially, he cannot be prosecuted. What's to stop him from becoming another Hitler?
Well, nothing's going to stop him. Basically, he controls the Republicans altogether. Obviously, the Supreme Court has nodded in his direction because he put a majority of conservatives like him on the court. And if he gets in charge of the executive branch and has the expanded powers and that freedom not to be tried for any presidential duties he has, there's nothing to stop him. The thing about the balance of the three branches of government, executive, legislative, and judicial, is that they have checks and balances on each other. So they can stop anything that happens. And in the past, had there been some infractions against constitutional law, the Justice Department would come in and they would stop people. They would arrest or charge. But if he's in charge of the Justice Department, that's not even going to happen. So nothing would be in place if he gets to be president to stop him from being the next Hitler.
You know, I'm a retired soldier, and as a soldier, I took an oath, as did all soldiers, generals all the way down to privates, to uphold the Constitution and to defend our country from enemies, both foreign and domestic. It appears that Trump is an enemy to our country's democracy, and as such must not be allowed to hold any public office, especially that of Commander-in-Chief. Retired Major General Paul Eaton summed it up when he called upon all military leaders to speak up and stop Trump.
Well, Jerry, I think that you have an idea of who to vote for and who not to vote for in this next election.
I don't think I do. I know I do. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Dr. Georgia.
See you later. Bye.
Goodbye.
Yeah, the only thing that I left out because I wasn't reading it is overturning Roe versus Wade and women being, but that one is, I think people know that.
Yeah, we got that pretty well covered.
Let's see how it goes. Oh, it's still